All right, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to be talking about zipForm Mobile today and how you can fill your contracts out on the go, as well as some other tools inside of the app. Today, we're going to be talking about downloading the app. We're going to look at our zipForm dashboard inside the app. We're going to look at creating a transaction template and then applying that new template to a new transaction. And we're going to save a little bit of time at the end for Q&A, but definitely if you have a question, type it in the question box as we go. And if I don't get to it during the course of the material, I will save some space at the end for Q&A. Now, there are 3 different types of zipForm that are available to you as a member benefit in California here. If you've been in real estate for a number of years, you probably remember WinForms, and which turned into zipForm Standard. zipForm Standard is the desktop version. You download it. It's a piece of software that you download and install on your computer. It is quite limited in comparison to zipForm Plus, but I used it in practice at open houses when before the age of hotspots being as affordable as they are. I would have my zipForm Standard open with a purchase contract, and I would be able to write a purchase offer if someone walked in and wanted to purchase it. Never actually happened, but stranger things have happened. That is still available. There's probably about 10,000 realtors in California that still use zipForm Standard as their main way of accessing their forms. And that brings us to zipForm Plus. So zipForm Plus is where you log in through C.A.R. for most of you. There's about 35,000 agents in California that are part of a broker edition of zipForm, which means that you log in directly through zipformplus.com. But for the majority of you, you're going to be going to C.A.R. and using the Access Now link on the homepage to get into your zipForm Plus. This is where your templates, your transactions, you can have contacts in there. Your whole transaction management system is part of that. There's a lot of tools in there. And the mobile optimized version of zipForm Plus is what we're talking about today, zipForm Mobile. Up until a couple of years ago, zipForm Mobile was just the mobile optimized version of zipForm that you would access through a browser on your phone, on your tablet. Now there is an actual app that you can download on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. The app is called zipForm Mobile Companion. This is what the icon looks like. And as I said, you can get it on the Google Play Store. You can download it on the App Store if you are an iOS user. Now, the screenshots I have here are from my iPad. Now, I go to the App Store on my iPad. I search for zipForm Mobile Companion, install it. And then when we open it up, we're going to be shown this splash screen. This is our zipForm Mobile Companion. Now, on your first time signing in, you want to remember that you want to use your C.A.R. credentials to sign in. As I said, the majority of you, at least 2/3, almost actually more like 70%, are going to be using your C.A.R. credentials to log in to zipForm Mobile. If you are part of a broker edition, you will be using your zipForm credentials, but your C.A.R. credentials are going to be generally the ones that you're going to use. Once you've signed in, you'll be shown your dashboard. This looks very, very similar to what you would see on a full computer, a desktop or a laptop. It's just arranged a bit differently. There is new I think they're doing A/B testing for a new dashboard and a new transaction summary page. But this is generally what the dashboard is going to look like. It's going to have your quarterly sales, your commission year to date, number of closed transactions, and closed volume up here. All of this is populated from the summary tab of each transaction. It doesn't pull information from the MLS. It doesn't pull it from anywhere else except for what you put in to the summary page of each transaction. So you want to make sure that your summary has all of your transaction dates, closing dates, the purchase price, the final closing price, commission amounts, things like that. you will get out of this dashboard exactly what you put into it. This is going to aggregate all of that information for all your transactions. So you want to make sure that you're setting the status of the transaction to the appropriate status. Once something closes, set it as closed, and it'll show that closed transaction on your dashboard. You can view your forms, manage your transactions, or create a new transaction from the dashboard. This saves you a couple clicks, but if you need to get into your forms right away, this is a great tool. Use your dashboard and it will serve you. Going down the left side here, we have our signature packets that are currently in progress. This is the one place that you're going to be able to see all of your signature packets that are currently out waiting for signature. This isn't for things that have been created but not sent. It's not for things that have already been signed. Those are still going to be inside of your transaction. But if you have any multiple packets that are out waiting for signature, this is where you'll be able to get to them. The next one down we have here is our listings that are expiring this month. You can see that our listings expiring and our transactions closing both have these blue stars. That means that they correspond to a transaction-specific date. In terms of the listings expiring, as long as you put an expiration date for your listings, this is going to populate. It's going to remind you, hey, you have something that's expiring in the next 30 days. Same goes for transactions that are closing. Now, the retentions ending in the next 30 days, this is going to be, once you've been in Zip for a while, you will start having your transactions kind of fall off. zipForm is going to hold on to your transaction data in your files for a period of 7 years for any status that is not closed. Once you set something as closed, that time period goes down to 5 years. Now, by law, you have to hold on to your transaction files for a period of 3 years. So either way, closed or still active or fallen through, zipForm is going to hold on to them for longer than you legally need to, which is great. But you should be archiving your transactions elsewhere. I recommend that. There is a lot of data that goes along with the transactions these days. It's not just the files, not just the contracts themselves. And that's where this recent activity kind of comes in. So recent activity is going to show you when you created transactions, when you added forms. If you're using services like Zip Community, another member benefit, this will show you when your clients have uploaded documents, when they've viewed documents, things like that. This recent activity goes back quite far. If you are a power user, you're inside of your Zip every day, all day. This might only go back maybe a month or so. If you're someone that only logs in maybe a couple times a week, this might go back quite far. But there are 180 different events that will trigger a journal entry inside of this recent activity. This recent activity aggregates all of your transaction activity and history. Inside the transaction itself, there's a history tab that shows all of the history for that particular transaction, and we'll take a look at that. Now, let's talk about the difference between transaction folders and template folders. So a transaction folder is a live transaction. It has an address, it has clients, a buyer seller attached to it, a listing agent, a buyer's agent. Now, these are active transactions. These are things that we're trying to move towards that finish line of closing escrow. And that is in contrast to a template folder. So a template folder is a folder that you prep ahead of time. I like to use the analogy that if you had 3 manila folders on your desk that had listing agreements in them, but those listing agreements only have your name and your broker affiliation on them, no prices, no properties, no client information on it. If someone called you and said, hey, I need you over at my house in 10 minutes, I want you to list my house, you would be able to grab that folder and run out the door. You prepped it ahead of time so that so the act of actually starting that new transaction is that much quicker. Now, doing this inside of zipForm doesn't just mean that you have contracts saved. It means that you have checklists, you have information saved in there, maybe a couple check boxes. You're really getting yourself started so that you're already on second base by the time you start that transaction. And we're going to be looking at that process for a buyer transaction later on. What else do we have here? So inside the app, the template tab is going to look just like this. It's going to be optimized for that mobile device. Again, I said this is an iPad. We're going to be looking at what zipForm Mobile Companion looks like on an iPhone. What do I have? An XR, an XS? I don't know. One of the newer iPhones, let's say. Your template folder will still give you the option to edit and make changes and apply templates to new transactions. You can add new ones, delete them. You can change your clauses if need be. Your transaction tab is going to look very similar. So one of the other great things about the mobile app is that you can change your profile settings from the app as well. So you have access to, I'd say, 99% of everything that you would inside of zipForm Plus on the mobile app. So your transactions go with you wherever you are with your mobile device. And this is really important because if you have your transactions with you, you can work from anywhere. If you have your iPad, you can be poolside and be working on your contracts, sending emails, taking care of business. And that's really, really important in this day and age because we need to get things out, signed, sent as quickly as possible because we want to be expeditious with our clients. We have a duty. Now, as I said, we can change our profile settings here. The other thing that we have is the guided help. So anywhere that you see the guided help on the screen, this is going to give you specific guided help for the page that you're on. So we were on the transaction tab here. We clicked on the guided help. It's going to give us some information and walk us through creating a new transaction. There's going to be some videos available, also some PDF guides. There's training. This is the ZipLogix webinar training, and there's also some quick tips. So depending on what page you're on, the guided help is going to do different things. If you're interested in finding out how to create a new template, you can go to the templates tab, click on that guided help button, and it's going to walk you through creating a new template. The same goes for when you're on the tasks tab, when you're on the summary tab, it's going to walk you through what each one of those fields does and just kind of give you a better idea of what you're trying to do on that certain page. So the first place you should go to if you get stuck is that guided help. There's a lot of great tools inside there. Now, zipForm does have a lot of support videos and guides. We on C.A.R.org have some great support. My colleagues and myself have created I think we have 30 zip tip videos now. They're free, 60, they're 1 to 2 minute videos on commonly asked questions, everything from how do I log into my zipForm all the way to how do I allow my sellers to fill out the disclosures using Zip Community. There's a lot of really great training online. If you do have any questions and you need our member support line, you can call 213-739-8227. Okay, so let's jump into zipForm on the phone. Let me switch my screen here. All right. So I want to show all right, let's see. All right, can everybody see my phone? Move it up and down here. Let me know. All right, cool. So this is zipForm Mobile Companion. We are on the dashboard currently. So all of our signature packets, listings expiring. So this is the new layout of the dashboard. It's going to show us our tasks that are due this week. It's going to have some graphs, our recent activities down here. So we can see that this first recent activity goes to about 3 hours ago. If we click on the See More option here, this is going to go all the way back to quite far, to September 10th, which is great. That's awesome. It's important to be able to go back that far and see what's going on inside the account. Our dashboard, again, is going to give us access to creating a new transaction. It's going to give us the ability to create a new contact. We can jump into our forms here. We can do a quick sign if there's something that you just need to get signed real quick, especially if it is like a PDF that you receive. You can start a new signature packet from the dashboard. and then kind of append it to a new transaction. We have some tools in here. We have access to our clause manager, our lookup field manager. So that is the dashboard. So this obviously is set up a bit differently because of the narrow nature of the screen. To get to our transactions, templates, all of that menu up here, we're going to click on this little hamburger stack. We have our dashboard, our transactions. This is where we'll be able to change our profile settings if need be. But let's look at creating a new template. So I'm going to click on templates, and we can see here that I have an escrow checklist and I have a listing template, but I want to create a buyer template. I want to create a purchase template. So I'm going to go up here to new, and click on new. We're going to click on purchase offer. It's going to ask us, what do we want to name our new template? And this is going to be called our awesome purchase template. This is going to be for residential. And then I want this to have some auto apply options. I want this to automatically apply to all residential purchase transactions going forward. So we're going to make this general enough that any new purchase of residential property, any new transaction that fits that criteria, this template will fit. And then we're going to click on save. And it's going to open our new blank template and allow us to start adding forms, adding placeholders, adding some checklist items. Give the app a second to catch up. There we go. So this is, again, going to let us know that we're currently modifying a purchase template, not a actual transaction. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add some forms. So I'm going to click on the add doc here. It's going to ask us what we want to add. We can browse our computer for a document. We can create a new placeholder, which we'll do in a minute. We can add a form from our form libraries, or we can pull a document in from one of these supported cloud services. So the first thing I want to add is some forms. I'll click on add form. The first thing I'm going to add is a cover sheet. I will drop down here and say add form. And then this is a purchase template, so I also want to add a residential purchase agreement. And then there are two other forms that I would like to add. The first one is the RPA financing worksheet. So that's the RPA WS. We'll add the RPA financing worksheet. And the other one that I like to add is the summary of the RPA. We see here, not the RIPA, but the RPA. Okay, that got added. Perfect. Click on the little red X here to get out of the form library. So now we have 4 zip forms here, these ZFX files. There's 2 other things that I want to add, and we're gonna add a couple placeholders. Now, placeholders are a visual representation of something that you want to add to the transaction later. So we're going to click on the add doc. I'm going to create a new placeholder. This placeholder I want to call my proof of funds. Click OK. So now we can see that that created just this null document. There's nothing there, but it's a spot that we're going to fill with the document later. I'm going to add another doc. I'm going to add a placeholder. And this one's going to be for my pre-approval. Click OK. So now we have 2 placeholders and 4 zip forms. Now I'm going to open up my cover sheet to make sure that all of my information is in there correctly. So again, we're not going to be adding a buyer name. We're not going to be adding any seller names. We're not adding any property information yet, but we are going to be adding our buyer broker information. So we'll click in there, start adding California Association of Realtors. We'll add the street address. And again, it's going to start guessing what we're trying to type. Oh, click on our Virgil Avenue here. It's going to fill in the city-state zip +4. It's going to verify that address. We want to make sure that our license numbers are in there. Make sure that our telephone number is in there for the brokerage. Very importantly, we want to make sure that our name is in there. Our license number. We're going to add make sure our office, or direct line, I should say. No fax number, no cell phone. We want to make sure that our email address is in there. Very important. Okay. So we have our broker affiliation. We have our license numbers. Looking good so far. Okay, we're going to click Save. It's going to save that. I'm going to click this little green button to go back. And now there's a couple of things that I want to add in the RPA. So I want this to be as general as possible, but there are certain things that I don't want to forget to do when I'm actually in the transaction. So one thing I want to do is add this little X to the buyer, because I'm definitely going to be representing at least one buyer. We'll keep scrolling down. We don't have a listing agent yet. We don't have any buyer information yet. No property address. But on the RPA, I want to pre-check this days till the close, just so that I don't have to think about it. And I want this to be 30 days. I'm going to check these boxes for representing the seller exclusively and me representing the buyer exclusively, because I'm likely going to check those boxes when I actually get into the transaction. If we want to, because we do have that proof of funds, we're going to click the verification of funds. And again, I'm not telling you how to fill out the contract. I'm just kind of going through the motions of some potential changes that you might make. Okay. That's probably enough. Okay. So we've done a few changes to the RPA. We're going to click Save. Let that save. We'll click the green button to go back. So now we have a template that has our information in it. We have a couple check boxes checked. We have a couple placeholders, but I want to add a couple checklist items as well. So I'm going to click on the gray menu up here, and I'm going to go into our checklists. Let's let this load. Okay. So we don't have any we haven't added any checklist yet. So we're going to click on New Checklist once this loads. So we'll click on New Checklist. We're going to call this our pre-offer docs. I'm going to click on the little pencil icon to bring up our category name. It's going to be called Offer Paperwork, and I want it to be blue, and we'll click Save. Now we're going to create a new task. So I want to create a new task that corresponds with the pre-approval. Okay. And I want this task to have a due date, but I don't want it to be fixed because this needs to apply to all future transactions. So I want to make a relative due date. Now, any task that has a due date inside of Zip, it's going to give you a notification by email and also in the system 2 days prior to the due date, and also 2 days after it's overdue. And that's going to make sure that you don't forget about what you got to do. So because these are documents that I need to have prior to my offer, I'm going to say that 1 day before the offer date, this task is going to be due. So what's going to end up happening is that this is going to be overdue the moment that we put that offer date in. And that's going to help because it's going to keep it at the top of my task list. It's also going to send me an email the day after the offer date, letting me know that, hey, this is overdue. Make sure you get that. And I do want to attach a document to it. And that document is going to be an existing document because we already have a placeholder. And I want this to be my pre-approval. So now we have a pre-approval task that's due 1 day before the offer date, and it has the pre-approval placeholder attached to it. We'll click Save. It's going to add that new task. Wonderful. Now I want to create a new task, and this one's going to be for the proof of funds. And again, I want this to be relative. 1 day before the offer date, this is going to be due. We're going to attach it to an existing document, which is the proof of funds. We'll click Save. So now we have 2 tasks that are due a day before the offer date. But maybe I also want, let's use this for now. Okay. So inside of our template, we have a checklist. We have some placeholders, a couple contracts. We also have, as in the parties, we have ourself as the selling agent and broker. So once we start this new transaction, this entire template is going to apply to the new transaction. So let's see what that looks like. Let's go a little hamburger stack here. Let's go to transactions. We're going to click on New to create a new transaction. This is going to be a purchase offer. And I'm going to use MLS Connect to bring in the property data. It's going to pull up my MLS Connect. I'm using Claw MLS today. If you are a member of multiple MLSs, you may see multiple options in this dropdown, but we're going to be using Claw today. Make sure that your listing type is correct. And then we're going to add our listing ID. I want to include the property photo. Click Find. It's going to scour the internet for information about this listing ID. It's going to bring in the address, city, state, zip, the price, the date it was listed, and very importantly, it's going to bring in the other agent's information. So we'll click on, let's see if we can copy and paste this. So use that listing. I don't want the word address in there. Okay. So this is 23rd Street in Manhattan Beach. Perfect. And again, we don't have any templates applied yet, but once we click on this residential radio button, we see that our awesome purchase template automatically was applied. Isn't that cool? So let's click on Save. It's going to create the new transaction and apply that template. Applying the template, it's going to bring us into the purchase summary, the transaction summary. So this is important. We need to put as much information into this transaction summary tab as we can, so that our transaction is as complete as possible. So MLS Connect brought in the address, the city, state, zip, +4. Looks like it brought in the school district, the zoning, the APN number, the year built. Way cool. Our offer date is going to be today. We're going to be aggressive and say their offer expires tomorrow. We haven't gotten our offer accepted yet. What was our purchase price here? $1,045,000. Okay, so we are going to offer. We're going to be very aggressive and say $1,542,500. We're not going to put our initial deposit in yet. We're going to do our closing date. We said 30 days, so let's say it's going to close on January 9th. We're going to take possession that same day. You can see that it brought in the listing agent and broker, as well as our information from the template. We can say, let's say our commission percentage is going to be 2.5%. And you can see that that did the math for us for the commission amount, which is super cool. And we need to add a buyer to this transaction. So we can click on more parties here. It's going to bring us into our parties tab. We have a listing agent, we have the selling agent, but we need to add a buyer. So we're going to click on new. And I happen to have my buyer for this transaction in my address book. So I'm going to click on the little address book here. Let's bring in my buddy Ricardo. Okay, so we have Ricardo's first name, last name, email, home phone, street address. We don't need to save him as a contact because he's already in there. I'm going to click save. So now we have our buyer one. Click on our little red X to get out of there. So we have a buyer, we have a listing agent, we have a selling agent. Way cool. Go back up here, go into the documents. Now if we open up our cover sheet, we can see that our client's information is here for the buyer. We don't have a seller. We have our property information in here pretty well filled out. We have a buyer broker and a selling broker. Soup's cool. Okay. Go to our My Forms. Now let's look at the RPA. That load. Any questions so far, guys? You guys are doing good. Okay. Let's do 36. Let's try to make this a little easier, make it a little bigger. Okay, so we have the AD form. You can see that our little checkbox is already there, which is why I put it in the template, because I don't want to have to forget that. Our client is here, buyer broker, listing broker, our property address is in there. Now our RPA, the heading up here, pretty well filled in. We do want our date prepared to be today. That didn't come in from the summary. We have our purchase price, $1,542,500, 30-day escrow. Looks like everything's good. Now we get to our initial deposit. So I generally, in practice, would do 3%. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But if you are using a percentage of the purchase price as your initial deposit, you may know that sometimes when you have a unique purchase price, as we do here, $1,542,500, I don't want to do that math. So what I will do, get to the top here. Oh, looks like we got, okay, perfect. I want to go to my Forms menu, and I want to go to the RPA financing worksheet. Now you'll see why I love this financing worksheet so much. Now the financing worksheet, all it has is the purchase price, and then it's got a bunch of check boxes here for the initial deposit. So I want to do 3%, so I'm going to check that box. We're not going to do an additional deposit, but we are going to do a first loan amount. We're going to do 25% down. So we checked those two boxes, and it did the math for us. Now, when we go back into our RPA, let's let that load. Come on, RPA. Processing. Okay, there we go. So now that we're back in our RPA, when we scroll down, we can see that our initial, what happened there? There we go. For some reason, all of our information was gone. We can see that our initial deposit is now there, $46,275, and our loan amount of $1,156,875 has been filled in for us. So the financing worksheet did the math. It put those numbers in there. If we did need to make a change to the purchase price, we could do that on our finance worksheet, and that will automatically adjust the initial deposit and the loan amount. So this is a great tool to make sure that you're doing your calculations correctly. Now, the other item that we added to our transaction template, let's go on My Forms, was the summary of the offer. And the summary of the offer is not something that you actually fill out. It's just an information page so that you can include this maybe as what I used to do is I would send it as the first page of my offer. Now this is going to have the kind of the broad strokes of the offer. So we can see that we have our purchase price, we have our initial deposit, loan amounts, close of escrow. It's going to have our contingency dates, or the days in there, whether we're selling a property to buy this one. It's going to ask us about items included like the stoves, washer dryers, refrigerators, and there's also some space for the other agent to write notes when they're presenting your offer. So this is a great form. This is the form Sum RPA. It's a great form. I highly recommend that you use it. So that's the forms that we added to the template. Now let's take a look at, let's go back to our summary here. Let's take a look at our checklist. So we want to click on this gray menu here. Let's go to our checklist. So our checklist has all of our transaction dates here. We have our date of possession, our offer date, date of contract, closing date, listing date. And see those blue stars, again, corresponding to a transaction date. And now that we have our offer date in there, the due date for our pre-approval and our proof of funds is now yesterday, and it's overdue. It's got this big red thing here. At the top of our checklist here, we have our urgent tasks, and that's going to bring up those urgent tasks because they're overdue. So this is great. This is telling us what we need to include with our offer. Okay. That's that. We have a little bit of time left. So let's jump forward a little bit. Let's look at another one of the great tools that we can use inside of our mobile app here. So let's assume that our offer got accepted. So let's go back to our transaction summary. Go to our purchase summary here. So let's say that our offer got accepted tomorrow. Now, let's go back to our document. So let's say that we're going to do our Avid. So we're going to click on the All Forms menu right here. Let's clear out that search. Let's do our Avid. So we're going to do our Agent Visual Inspection Disclosure. That's added. There's our Avid down here. Let's open it up. So one of the great things about, I know that actually typing and filling out the Avid on your phone may be a little cumbersome. On an iPad, maybe a little bit easier, a tablet. But one of the great things about this is that let's say that we are walking through and we go through the entryway and we say, hey, there's some plants, and I do want to note that there are these plants in the entryway. We're going to click on the little More menu here. We're going to click on Photos, and we're going to attach a photo. Now I want to take a photo or video. So I'm going to open up my camera. We can zoom in on my little plants here. It's my office. We're going to grab that photo. We're going to say, use that photo. We can put a little caption in. We could say, these plants are on their last legs. Need water. Stat. It's going to process, add our photo. And what's going to end up happening is that we're going to get a little tag on the contract itself. Once this loads, these new fancy phones take very, very large photos. They take a minute to upload. So the moral of this is that you can take a bunch of photos, you can attach them to the document now, or you can attach them to the document later. What it's going to give us is this little green, we can zoom in on that, little photo tag here. And we're going to click and drag that to the entryway. Super cool. So now you say, where'd the photo go? Okay, we have the tag there. In order to see this, we know that the Avid is 3 pages long. But now, when we click on the More menu up here, we click on Preview. It's going to give us a PDF preview of the form. We can now see that this is, it's 6 pages now because the photo is very large. So as we scroll through here, we're going to see our photo tag right there under the entryway. And then at the end of the form, there's going to be our large photo and then our caption. So I like to carry around a small ruler. When there was a mark on the wall, a crack, anything of note, hold the ruler up, take a photo with your phone, attach it to the Avid. If you're taking a listing, you can snap some photos. You can attach photos of maybe a chandelier that's not included in the listing. If there's something very specific that needs to be addressed in the contract, whether it be the listing contract or the purchase contract, if you're doing requests for repairs, you can take photos of things that need to be repaired, attach them like we just did to the request for repairs. All of the C.A.R forms can accommodate photos. And what ends up happening is that those photos, when you attach them to the document the way that we just did, those are part of the contracts now. This form cannot be sent as a PDF, can't be sent for signature without those photos attached. They are part of the contract now. It is no longer a 3-page contract. It is as we can see here, 6 pages because the photo is quite large. This is a really great tool that applies to not only the mobile app, but also the desktop version, zipForm Plus. Use that tool. This is a very, very powerful tool. A picture is worth 1,000 words. And, this is going to save you if there's ever, God forbid, a dispute over something in the contract or during the deal. If you have photographic evidence, that's hard to argue with. So that is the broad strokes of the mobile app. Any questions? You guys, it's been a half hour since anybody said anything. We have 37 people in here. I know one of you's got to have a question. What do we got? No questions? Okay. Well, I will stick around for a couple minutes. Let's see. Where's a good question? Wasn't sure about how to find the placeholder. Now you're referring to adding the placeholder to the transaction? Okay. So we clicked on the Documents tab. We have our Add. Where are we at? I'm on 4 screens here. We have our Add Document here. So when we click on Add Document, we have Create Placeholder. So that's how we're going to be able to add a placeholder. If we're in a checklist and we're trying to add a new document to a task or a checklist item, we can create a placeholder from there as well. This is a great question. Where was it? I just saw it. Oh, client signing on a mobile device. Now, we're not going to go into DocuSign or Digital Link, but I do want to show you the way that your client would sign. Let's just do the Avid. So because we're on a mobile device, I really appreciate you bringing up the signing part. Because we're on a mobile device, we have access to a third signing option, and that is touch sign. So let's say that we want to click on e-sign here. Maybe we have DocuSign, Digital Link, we have touch sign. So what's going to end up happening is we're going to say that we want our client Ricardo to sign our Avid. Because our client is with us, they're standing right next to us, we want them to sign this right away. No problem. So now we're on step 2, verify that they're going to sign it. It's going to bring us into step 3, and this is, you're going to show this hand the phone to your client and say, hey, here's the terms of service. This is saying that this is putting pen to paper, this is signing, this is legally binding, yada, 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 yada. So let the form load. There we go. Now we're moving. And again, this is being recorded. You will get a link to the recording in 24 hours. Not sure why this Avid is not loading yet. There we go. Okay, so I want to add, looks like an initial first. So I'm going to click on initial on the side here. We're going to tap to initial it. So they're going to draw it with their finger. We're going to say this is Ricardo. It's going to drop that in there. We're going to use these little crosshairs up here to move it around. First thing I want to do is grab these little 3 lines here. I'm going to shrink it down, shrinky dink. Grab the handles, move it over to where it needs to go. Click initial, boom, they initialed it. Go through the next page. We're going to add another initial. And now this time it knows what we want. Oh, all right. We're going to shrink a dink. Move it into place. Initial, boom. Now we get to signature. So I'm going to click on sign. Oh, Ricardo's going to sign his name. A little shrink a dink. Grab that. Come on, there you go. Move his signature into place. Sign, boom. We're going to add a date. This is, I want to move it, there we go. So I'm going to shrink a dink the date. Drop the date into place. Add that date. All right, cool. So our client signed this. Go back up to the top and say done. Please confirm participating signers have signed the documents. Yes. So now they just signed it. How cool is that? Obviously on a tablet, this might be a little bit easier, but we did it. One finger. We're able to sign it. Don't sign for your clients, like I just did. Have your clients actually do it. But now if we go to our My Forms here, we can see, hey, look at that, a PDF of the Avid. We're going to open up that PDF. And guess what? We have our first page here. Let it load. Let it load. Well, this is taking a minute. not frozen. We're just waiting for it to load. All right. So we have, look at that, a signature, or sorry, an initial. Cool. Another initial. Cool. Signature. Awesome. Our photo that we added with our caption. How cool is that? So our clients were able to sign the avid right in front of us. Didn't have to go to their email. Way cool. Okay? So that is the mobile app. Thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions? We got just a couple minutes left. Go to our history tab. This is going to show we added the form, updated our commission amounts. Cool. All right. Cool. I really appreciate you guys hanging out for the last hour. If you do have any questions, definitely reply to the email that you get tomorrow with the recording. Those will go directly to me. You can ask me questions. You'll get the recording in 24 hours. Thanks, everybody. Let's get out there and make some money. Bye.